Hey guys, I just want to let you know that I'm now a certified spiritual life coach. If you resonate with the topics and lessons that my guests and I discuss on my podcast, and you feel that you could use some empowerment and direction in your journey of becoming who you truly are, consider booking a free discovery call with me on my website at kindlemccullough.com. And now on to the episode. Hey guys, I'm excited today. I have Tabita back. We did a Instagram live together a couple weeks ago, and I had it as my last podcast episode. This week will be a little the quality will be better because we're doing it using Riverside and better mics and everything like that. So um, good thing there. Yeah, 2 weeks ago was really awesome. We talked about attachment styles and how that relates to God and, relationships like that. And really enjoyed it. Tabitha was great. And today I just want to hear more about her own personal story, her, religious upbringing and her awakening and Dark Night of the Soul. And we've had a couple other people on to talk about that stuff. And of course, my own journey of that. So always love that. It's been a couple episodes since I had a story episode, and I always love those because it really helps us connect people better and help understand their personal experience and how they came to believe what they believe. And so, yeah, I always love them and think they're powerful. So, yeah, long intro. Tabitha, thanks for coming on.
Thank you so much, Kendall. It's a pleasure to be here and be talking to you again. I think these conversations are so meaningful and impactful, and yeah, love to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so you just want to kind of jump in and tell us about you and your life.
Yes, of course. Well, so hey guys. Well, where to start? I'm a
Mm-hmm.
Brazilian living in Europe for 10 years now. I grew up in Brazil, born and raised for a very traditional Catholic Portuguese family. Then immigrated to Brazil, yeah, on my great grandfather level. So I was, yeah, technically half Portuguese, half Brazilian. And being very Catholic since the beginning, I kind of grew up with an aversion for for religion in a way because it felt too rigid. I was a child, like to have to be pushed to go to church and seeing the dysfunctions sometimes in the family and not agreeing with the rigidity of the religion itself. And yeah, well, Brazil, as you know, it's a great country, beautiful. I love the people, I love everything else. Although, as I was growing up, I realized when I was 20 something, I think 22, 23, I realized it was time for me to move and look for something else outside of what I seen in my culture and in my family. And it was just an urge to go and experience the world in a different way. Let's put it this way. So I graduated in accounting in Brazil. I was very young and I thought, you know what? I'm just going to go for a year, spend a year in Ireland, Dublin,
I love
and then
Ireland.
I'll come back home. Yes, I love
It's
Ireland.
beautiful.
It has a really, it's a beautiful place, amazing landscapes, amazing people. And I just said, why not? I'm just gonna try 1 year. And it happened that now I have been 10 years in Europe. I moved away from Ireland 5 years ago as well. So now I'm in Amsterdam, based in Amsterdam for also 5 years to this point. And what can I say? This 10 years have shaped me in so many different ways. Coming and like traveling all around and getting to know different people, different backgrounds, different religions, different experiences. It has opened my mind so much, but also has brought to my attention my traumas and my
Mm-hmm.
beliefs and everything this year. I wouldn't say this year. I think that the journey has started a long time ago, maybe since we were born, right? But especially after COVID, my world kind of came crashing on me, and all my beliefs were kind of put to questioning. And yeah, this year especially, well, one step before that, since I'm an accountant, I've been working a lot in offices my whole life, and working in high stress, high demanding jobs. It Yeah, this year I had a burnout back in March. Yeah, it started in earlier, probably before, and I was dragging it until to the point in March I couldn't work anymore. Um, that's when I really believe my, let's call, awakening journey started to be known to me, because until this point I just thought myself, okay, life is hard, I'm struggling, but everyone is struggling. So I'm just another struggling person trying to figure myself out. But then it reached a point that I just didn't know anymore who I was, what I was doing. Something wasn't working for me. And it wasn't just work. It was much more than work that brought me to this point of questioning everything. It was my relationship with my friends, my relationship with my partner, my relationship with food, with gym, my relationship with pretty much everything. And I've been through a process where I bought a house, and then I went through renovation, and then work got chaotic. My relationship was suffering, I was suffering, and I just lost complete sense with reality. Like, something is really off here, and it's probably me. I'm the common denominator of all those things that are happening, and it happened for a reason, I believe. But when I was really struggling, I was overcompensating, and even like I wasn't happy, of course. And then I would go on the weekends. I live in Amsterdam, of course. You have drugs everywhere. You have alcohol. And I got to meet friendships that would lead me to try those things. And it just made myself feel worse, and guilt and shame for going down that path. And yeah, it took me a burnout where my body stopped completely from functioning. I was having panic attacks. I was feeling super drained, fatigued, completely lost and sad, and I couldn't leave my room. I couldn't have normal conversations with people without having a trigger nervous system. And it's really what, like, I never experienced something like that in my life. Like, I consider myself a very extroverted person. Like, I would go out in a bar and talk to everyone. But now I just couldn't have a normal conversation in a cafe without getting triggered. Everything and everyone was triggering me. And I couldn't realize why. Like, why, all the questions. And yeah, it was literally my nervous system telling me, look, there is something really off. Now you really need to pay attention to yourself and my needs. I wasn't even paying attention to my needs. I wasn't eating healthy. I wasn't eating on the right times. I couldn't even feel the urge to eat. I was just skipping meals because my work was chaotic. I was also skipping them to the times that would fit my schedule. And I lost complete sense with even my needs. Like, I didn't know when I was thirsty, when I was hungry, when I had to go to the gym. And yeah, it was really going back to the basics and start to realize, okay, Tabata, now you need to take control back for your body, for yourself, for your soul. And then is when spirituality came to me, because I didn't know anymore how to do it. I was doing therapy, but I was already doing therapy for 3 years, and it didn't seem to me that that would be the only way out. It felt like it was going to take forever, and I'll probably never get out of it. Because when you have this burnout or depression, it feels like you dug a hole so deep, there's no escape, there is no exit. You don't see any light out of it. It took me 5 months And then I found spirituality. Yeah, it was when I tried everything else. Now I'm gonna pray. I'm gonna pray, and I'm gonna finish the relationships or end the relationships that are not healthy for me. I'm gonna have to place boundaries. I always struggle to place boundaries, and I think that's one of the reasons as well I got into the burnouts to begin with. And then understanding this boundaries, the issues, I also understood, okay, I have a trauma. Why can I not place the right boundaries, right? And then I started to finally get into Theta healing, which is like a form of limiting beliefs treatment, where you go into deep down in your traumas and you change the belief itself.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has been the best thing that happened to me and really connected me to the spirituality again, because then I could see the effects of it, and I could see how much how can I say, my inner strength came back. And let's call it God, but I can also call it my higher self. I can also call it my own powers, or just the light inside of me that was reigniting bit by bit as I was working through my limiting beliefs. That's how I ended my cycle, or I still believe I'm in a cycle, but I think the darkest cycle, it's in the past. Now I'm kind of in the healing from the past cycle,
Yeah.
which is always reintegrating, right? I feel like this awakening, it has more or less 3 stages from what I'm experiencing and also reading about. And I think we have this dark night of the soul. I think then we have this reintegration part where you deconstruct everything that you believe to rebuild and reshape your reality. And then the final stage, in Portuguese, there is a word that I think is really beautiful to describe it. I don't think that word is in English. It's called aurora, which is the first beam of light when the sun comes out. It's that little first light, that's called aurora. And also, if we look, I think it's funny enough, as I'm studying it, in Disney, you have the Sleeping Beauty. The name of the princess is also called Aurora. And it's interesting that this analogy, like the first light that comes after the darkness. And that's it's you taking back your powers, you taking back, okay, I know I have shadows, but in order for me to have shadows, I have to be in the light. Because if I don't have a shadow, I'm in darkness. And that was the beauty of it when I start going through this reshaping of my reality and understanding the beauty of it. Instead of just seeing the negatives in everyone, I start seeing light in everyone. I start seeing light in myself. And yeah, I don't know. Have you been to something similar, Kendo? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah. I've been through something similar. A lot of good stuff. You're just like on a roll there, so I just let you go. But I wrote down notes, and I kind of
Yeah.
want to go back and then, from the beginning, and then get to where you are now. So I want to get back to the awakening, but I want to go back real quick if that's cool with you. Okay. So I'm not sure if it was Brazil or somewhere else I was reading. I think it was Brazil, but they were saying something about how religion and Christianity is very mixed with also like traditional spirituality or like native traditions and religions. And is that is
Yeah.
that is that true?
I don't think in Christianity, but we have loads of African Brazilian religions. Since the slavery time, there was a huge mix of religions.
Oh.
So from Christianity with Afro-descendant religions, they kind of mix up and build their own religions. But Christianity still stays the same, but you have variations of it.
Got it.
And I always got exposure to those in spirituality. Let's call, there are multiple, streams, let's call it. I had exposure to them, but I never truly believed in them because I couldn't experience it myself. I am that type
Mm-hmm.
of person that I can only truly believe in something if I experience myself, because I like to have the critical thinking of,
Mm-hmm.
okay, this, I don't like someone to tell me this is the truth. I like to know, okay, this might be the truth, but
Mm-hmm.
there could be other truths, and
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see which one is mine. And that's my
Yeah.
critical think side
Mm-hmm.
of me. I think it comes with my logical accounting brain.
Mm-hmm.
But indeed, in Brazil, it's like that.
Yeah. Cool. Is Brazil mostly Catholic, or they like mix half and half of Protestant and Catholic?
I think it's half and half. Well, mostly, maybe a little bit more Catholic, but we
Mm-hmm.
also have Protestants, and we have a lot of other Brazilian, Afro-Brazilian cultures that
Mm-hmm. Got it.
people go for it. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So you said there was your Catholic upbringing was like really rigid. What did you
Hmm.
what do you mean by that?
Patriarchy. I
Mm,
mean, I don't have brothers or sisters. I have a grandmother that, like, I love her too so much. And she had her own past and her own upbringing, and they were in the church, so they were practicing. They were, yeah, they were not priests, but they were there in the community, participating on the mass. And we had to go there, you know? It's almost like, yeah, grandpa will be there, so we all have to go there. So it felt like something we had to do.
mm-hmm.
And this, the part of rigidity that I didn't like about it, and the fact that I didn't have, I was the only girl in the family. I had four cousins. We were very close. And I always felt that I was treated a bit different. But that could be my own perception
Mm-hmm.
of it, right? Because I
Mm-hmm.
was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But being a girl and having four other boys in the family, I felt like patriarchy shaped me in a different way. You know, like I had different expectations
Mm-hmm.
by being a little girl, and
Mm-hmm.
my boy cousins, they didn't have the same expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and even to this point, I don't have any kids. You know, I'm 32 years old, and yeah, my cousins are married, and one already have kids. And every time I go back home, it's like, oh, when are you gonna have kids? You know, it's time is
Mm-hmm.
ticking, and this type of
Mm-hmm.
Catholic patriarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and you're getting old, and
Mm-hmm.
this kind of social pressures that we have in family.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, it's still there, and I see how my dad suffered a bit, and how my grandmother itself suffers with the mentality, the rigidity, the
Mm-hmm.
beliefs that you have to have around God in certain ways, or yeah, mm, even with gays, or yeah, it's just a very
Yeah.
rigid way of looking into religion, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it's something
Right.
that bothered me in the
Would that be
past. Yeah.
some things like how you can dress, or like speaking up, or again the traditional
Yeah, as well.
rules of like,
As
you should be a
well.
wife, and you can't be
Yes.
some of them are like you can't even have a job, um
Yeah, yeah. Like even the
stuff
fact
like
that I
that.
came to live abroad, you know,
Mm,
yeah, why are you away from your family? Why are you building your career? And I see that it comes from a place of love, you know, I see
mm-hmm,
that it comes from a place like we think that's the best for you, you know,
mm-hmm, right.
but excludes my own truth, excludes
Mm-hmm,
the fact that I want to search from something else. And I
mm-hmm,
appreciate you guys doing that the way you wanted to do it, but sometimes I just wanted to do it my way, you know, and
yeah.
I'll suffer the consequences of that too, and that's fine with me, you know. Uh, but I grew a lot as well by just being open with them about it, and we talk about it. And I think now they start to see more my side of the story as well.
Mm,
But yeah, I still had some resentment. But it's funny how this resentment towards religion is coming back now after my awakening. And now I'm like, okay, guys, yeah, you know what? There was a part of it that you were right. And I'm connecting to God again.
mm-hmm,
And family. And, you know, like, yeah, family is important. And I love them so much, but I want to build my own family in my terms and my
yeah.
God in my own terms.
Yeah.
And I think that's the freedom of what awakening actually means to me. It's like you find your truth. There could be many, there could be multiple, but what is yours? And I can always change. I can always
Mm-hmm.
change the way I think. And I think it's a blessing to be able to say, hey, look, today I believe this, but tomorrow might be something else. But God will always stay in my mind and in
Mm-hmm.
my heart, because that's my safe space. I can
Yeah,
always trust. It's beautiful, right? I can always
yeah, no, that's
trust
exactly what I was gonna
tomorrow.
say. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
I think awakening is that freedom and that release from shame of like, oh, I have to get it right, or I have to believe this certain thing. And it's like, no, God understands us even better than ourselves. I think he's unconditional love. So that means no matter what, he still loves us. So, as long as I'm trying to pursue truth and love, then, I think that's where I'm supposed to be. And to do that, you have to be honest about, like, you know what, there's some things I don't know, there's some things I'm not sure about, and you know what, I probably have some things wrong, and that's okay. And um I don't have to be certain about everything, and I can change my beliefs and ideas, because as people we always change as we grow. So that's a
100%.
good thing. And so um it's just a process. It's not perfect, it's messy, and that's okay.
Yeah, yeah. Life is messy, and we will lose friends, we will lose people, but as long as we don't, even if we lose ourselves, if we have God, we can always find a way back,
Hmm.
And that's what makes me wake up in the morning and believe, okay, whatever happens in this day, I know it's for my best. I know it's
Mm.
for me to learn something. If something goes wrong, not the way that I expected, I will learn something out of it, and I will become a better person tomorrow. And there's always the tomorrow of tomorrow, to be
Hmm.
better and be present and be happy on the now, even in the
Yeah.
difficult situations.
Yeah, 100%. And I think you said when you moved to Europe, you started experiencing a lot more religions and different kind of people. That's something I realized being different, the U.S. versus Europe, and I'm sure that Brazil has some similarities in that both, the U.S. is huge and Brazil is pretty big
Mm-hmm.
too, um,
Mm-hmm.
and that although there is diversity, um, it's like I'm in Texas. Just the state is bigger than, like, it's like, I don't know, six or a lot of different European countries in one. And so
Mm-hmm.
in that span of Europe, all those countries, there's tons of different religions, language, culture, all this stuff. Where Texas, it's not a lot of diversity, and you know like, I'm in West Texas, it would take me 8 hours to drive to East Texas to Dallas, and that would be different, but even that wouldn't be so different. So basically, my point is that for the area you travel in Europe, there's so much more diversity than United States or Brazil, and so that just, like, I could see how that could totally open up your world in a new way.
100%. Yeah, I can so relate with you. Even though Brazil is huge, I was brought up in it's in a beach city in the state of São Paulo, which is one of the biggest states of Brazil. Really high density and popularity. It's like a lot of people. But I grew up in this beach city and I had a bubble, and in this bubble, I didn't get exposed to different types of religions or different types of people. Everyone is somewhat similar to the way I thought and the way I was brought up. Like, I was part of that bubble. But when I moved to Europe, my whole mind was like, the world is so big.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, I got exposed to, Indian friends, like Hinduism, Buddhism, and even atheism, because there is a lot of people in Europe that actually they're not Catholics at all. They don't believe in anything. And I also learned a lot of, like, about, okay, how could you not believe in anything but
Hmm.
still be so strong on yourself? Because they
Hmm.
have a belief. It's just
Hmm.
not classified as God,
Right.
but they have a belief in their own strength, in their own
Hmm.
being, and they're not
Hmm.
bad people. They're amazing people. Even like my partner, he doesn't really believe in it, but they respect so much,
Hmm.
uh, and that, I think, it's the beauty of being in Europe, indeed, like traveling around and seeing different countries and seeing so much diversity.
Yeah, yeah. I have an atheist friend who's a scientist, and we talk about science, and we'll talk about religion and spirituality some. But
Mhm.
after getting to know him more, I'm like, he is classified as an atheist, but he believes in the beauty of nature and the power of evolving and growing and um,
Mhm.
appreciating the sacredness of life and humans and stuff like that. And so I'm like, you know what? He is spiritual. He is just in his own way, and he has his own
Yeah,
language, and it's through
yeah,
science, but it's still all connected, all related.
yeah. And as long as it works for them, and it works for us, and we can still be friends, that's perfect. That's the
Hmm.
beauty of having different truths, and we can learn from each other, because there is
Yeah.
no universal truth. I believe there is, yeah, what we believe in ourselves and what works for us.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. So you're talking about COVID, and
Yeah.
you, or this is my words. You tell me this
Hmm.
resonates to you, but that I guess what I'm understanding is you couldn't work during that time, or
No, I was still working. I
still
was still
working, but
working,
you
but
couldn't do all
completely.
these other things that you normally would do.
Yes, exactly. But I was well. So my story with COVID, it was around 4 years ago, right, when it really hit, and I was just moving to Amsterdam. I moved 1 year before with a ex-partner from Ireland that didn't work out. So 2 months living together here, we broke up, and I was completely alone when COVID hit. So I was living in an apartment with no friends in a different country,
Mm,
in a different job, and I knew zero people. So it was a difficult time.
mm,
I got to meet different people from work, and it developed, but it was a very hard time to be completely isolated from human contact.
yeah.
And once I went back to life and things started opening up again, I craved so much the connections. It's the time in my life that I over partied or over like went too much in alcohol and substances to kind of connect to people. And then it's when I realized I was having social anxiety, and I
Mm,
didn't know how to relate to people, like not to relate, but how to cope with my nervous system with so much information, because
mm,
our brains is a machine. It really adapts to your situation. So adapting to stay at home, it was so peaceful and quiet and no one around. Now you have all this noise and yeah, people talking and chattering, and it was so much for my brain to cope. And now I realize, like, wow, I also didn't help because I went from 0 to 100, like party, 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 and
mm,
yeah, I expected what?
mm.
So yeah, learning
Yeah.
with
It sounds
taking
like
step by step.
yeah. It sounds like growing up, obviously you have your family and friends and school, all the natural environments, and then um moving to Amsterdam, you lost all of that really. I also relate
Hmm.
because my awakening was when I went to grad school, and so I was away from family and um all that was familiar to me, and um I wonder, so it's like you were trying to make up for that. All of a sudden now I'm alone, and it's all, I've been able to meet my needs and find happiness and stuff like that in other people and everything going on. So now I'm going to try that again. um
Hmm.
but yeah, then it was like overboard the other way, and so maybe life, God's call was like, wake up to yourself and establish that relationship with yourself, and able to find happiness not through external things and other people, but within yourself and God. Is that right?
Exactly. Exactly. You touched in a very important point that I missed in the whole awakening, which is the finding your true love, which is the love for the self, right? It's something we hear about and we read in the self-help books, and you think, I love myself. uh, But it's interesting to notice that we think we love ourselves, but when the negative thoughts come, we can be very harsh on how we judge ourselves and how we don't have compassion for the difficult periods and we want to be perfect and why you're not perfect, why you're failing, don't fail, you know. It's that little voice that took me some time to understand with the traumas where it was coming from and how to be compassionate. And even sometimes we might still have that voice, you know, and I think it's part of also the ego to keep us safe. To it's necessary even to question the reality. And I think that voice comes for you to question, okay, look, there's something wrong here, don't be stupid or whatever, but we need to be compassionate with that voice. Don't give in to the voice and say, yeah, actually, I am stupid. No. Hey, one step back. You know, like, take it easy. I'm in control. And I will love myself even in these difficult situations. I'm going to love myself even when I fail. And I'm going to love myself all the way because that's God in me. That is, it's beautiful because I realized also when I was suspicious of everyone and everything during this awakening journey, like I went through a period of going completely checking out of my reality, and I'm like, I don't trust anyone. Because I forgot to say this story. Paranoia, and I went full on I do that often, like extremes. Like now I see God, now God is in my heart, and I went telling everyone I hear God's voice every time. I truly believe that, you know, but I went out telling everyone, people that were not ready for that. And I crossed their boundaries, you know, I crossed their boundaries by not being aware enough, like, hey, chill, you know, go slow. And people got really scared with my reaction by seeing my depression times and seeing me coming out super happy and talking about God all the time. They called the doctor for me. They're like, yeah, she's not in a good space and we need to do something about it. And they called the doctor. And that to me was one of the most terrifying experiences in my life. But also made me aware of, okay, I am doing things too fast and people are not coping with my changes, and I'm not even coping with my changes myself because my nervous system was definitely triggered, and I triggered other people. And that little trauma now is something that I'm still dealing sometimes because, yeah, most of my friends that actually called the doctor for me, they kind of once they heard that I was actually okay, they kind of disappeared. It almost seemed like they wanted me to be sick or take, and it's okay, you know, it's their choice as well. But going back from that situation and realizing, okay, I came from a point that I was super depressed, and now I'm happy. Now I found God. Now I'm quieting my nervous system. What is left? It's the self-love. It's this peace of God that brings me down and ground me not to be this, yeah, because joy can also be chaotic, you know. Even joy, when you have so much joy, can be hysterical joy. And I felt like during that phase I also went through the extreme of joy, and now I'm in the stream of joyful peace, you know. It's a nice state of mind.
Yeah, I get it. You know, I think there's different types of awakenings. The awakening I had was a Kundalini awakening. I don't know if you've heard of that.
Yeah.
And so like my body shook and there was a lot of energy. Um, but you know, I think that well, whatever type of awakenings, there's a lot of similarities. And so, you know, whenever I think awakenings are a worldview shift on how we see the
Mhm.
world and see everything else and see ourselves and see God. And so in that, it's destabilizing because our whole reality is shifted. And so that's ungrounding.
Mhm.
And so it's going to take a little bit to kind of find our bearings, find our north, you know, find our rock. And so, and, you know, naturally we're going to be kind of frenetic and um, manic. And, you know, I've had an episode talking about the difference between awakenings or spiritual emergence is one word
Hmm.
versus psychosis. And,
Yeah.
truly there's differences, but there's also overlap. And I
Hmm.
think that you really, there's always some overlap a lot.
Of course.
Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
yeah,
I truly
but
believe that. I'm sorry.
it is tough to have family or friends or both that only see the negative side and
Mhm.
are not validating the positive side and the changes. And um, it's hard for them too, because you're also challenging their worldview and their understanding reality, and so they don't want to get destabilized. But
Mhm.
we want to share in this joy and love and this realization. um, so I understand how difficult that can be, and I hope that you've been able to find new friends that can understand and validate and appreciate who you're becoming now.
100%. Yeah, I think it was. I take responsibility as well for the paranoia part and for, yeah, sharing so much with everything and everyone without considering their side of their worldview.
Mm-hmm.
And but it's also a nice check of reality, as you mentioned. Like, okay, I have 10 friends, but from these 10 friends, like close friends, only three can handle my truth. So only those three, it's the three that I really want to keep, because otherwise I
Mm-hmm.
can keep the other seven, but I have to tame myself down and not talk about that part of myself that I think is beautiful. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I'll be completely honest with those friendships as well,
Yeah.
So and I understand what they done. They had good intentions, like of course they were worried with me and everything else. But it's just a fact of me understanding I need boundaries even with friends. I need
Mm-hmm.
to be fully myself, and that's the friendships that I want to cultivate going forward. I want to be okay. I'm a bit, talking about God, and I like God, and I respect your views, but I would also like to be respected in mine. And now I'm working on the hysteria part. I also think that I scared everyone, and I take full responsibility for that.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, now it's even funny to look back and like how chaotic the whole situation was. But that's the
Yeah.
awakening, like, and for people that are listening to this, like, there will be times that you think you're crazy and maybe you are a bitch. That's okay, that's okay. Just hang in there because it's gonna get better and better and better. You always like,
Mm-hmm.
even I think we're learning, like, right, Kendall, we're learning every day a little bit more about ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that, awakening, you're coming more into yourself. And with that, realizing who you are in a fuller sense, also realize that'll change your environment and relationships and how you relate and who you want to relate to. And I think part of growing up, having those boundaries, be like, who is truly my friend? And, I think there's different levels too. Like I have,
Hmm.
close friends and I have less close friends. I have acquaintances. And, with my closest friends, they are the ones that I can truly be all of myself. I can talk about my spirituality, and um, I can even talk about questions I have and admit vulnerabilities, and that's not going to threaten them or freak them out, and they're going to be able to hold space for me and be honest back. And I can feel free to be vulnerable, be myself, and that's not going to trigger them. But then
Hmm.
there's other people who I realize that that's just not the case, and so um, readjusting my expectations. And then also, some people, maybe we're not going to be as close as we were just because I'm different now, and that's okay. People
That's
change,
okay.
and people are where they're at, and so we can have love and empathy for people where they're at too, and also realize that we're being empathetic by establishing boundaries, because constantly triggering and challenging and threatening them, with the way we are and our beliefs, that's not healthy for them either.
No, yeah, it's quite toxic indeed. And I had a very nice friend example of like when I found my self love and I found this love with God, and I was feeling those before. I was feeling like looking very negative at people and very even judgmental or suspicious. When I reframed all that, when I found my self love, I stopped being suspicious of friends, also because after the
Mm,
trauma with the doctor and everything else. And I had one friend specifically that we took some time apart, like a month or two. I don't remember now. It's like a bit more than a month. And then we regathered and we understood each other. You know, sometimes there will be friends that you have to part ways, and maybe in the future might take 10 years, we don't know. But there will be friends also that you need your space to heal, and then you
mm,
connect and regather. And you know what,
mm.
our friendship is strong enough so we can talk about things. And I think these are the
Yeah,
good friends. These are the good friends that you can be completely honest, and even on the
yeah.
BS sometimes. But yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I think those are the best friendships, the ones that you can actually, have fights or triggers or whatever, but then be like, you know what, that's life, that's people, we're imperfect, and we can heal from this and keep growing. And um I think it's amazing. I was just
Yeah.
talking in my coaching session about abandonment wounds, and I think that relationships like that are healing to that. It's like
Mhm.
we can be imperfect and have even major fights or whatever, but we're still gonna reconnect. That's so powerful and healing.
100%. I used to be quite immature with friendships. I was like black or white thinking. And
Mm,
yeah, if someone hurt me, I'll never talk to that person. That was so
mm.
immature of me. And we don't do that with partners, right? We don't do that with
Hmm.
like we have fights with partners and we talk about it. As you know, why wouldn't we do that for friends? And yeah, of course there are boundaries and it depends. But yeah,
Hmm.
it's nice to develop that's like soft skill of managing relationships better and having healthy friends around you. It's so important in this process if we're going through the dark night of the soul or awakening. And yeah, it's good to have those people
Yeah.
around.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. Um, and so you talked about awakening and you're deconstructing and the reconstructing, um, and the aurora. The so there is the aurora borealis. You know what
Boreal,
that is?
yes, yes, it's
Yeah,
the Northern
that's
Lights as
that's
well,
hard to
right?
pronounce. Yeah, the Northern Lights.
Yeah,
So I was like, oh, that's similar.
also
And then
connected.
also it really sounds a lot like enlightenment.
Yeah.
And that can be like a figurative or kind of esoteric out there idea for some people, but you think about the word in enlightenment, that's letting in more light, more love.
Mhm.
And I don't have the scientific chops or the memory, but there is like scientific evidence about how like that is a literal thing of light inside, and
Mhm.
growing that capacity inside ourselves to let more in. And so I think it reflects too in the spiritual way of love and growing more into yourself. So it's really interesting.
Mhm.
But my question is with your awakening, your deconstructing, what did you learn about yourself, and how did that relate to your childhood, and maybe how that kind of caused some wounds that you had to heal?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so I got to know my traumas when I, that's also a funny one. I was so angry, and when I got the burnout
Mm,
at work, I was mostly angry at my boss. But I thought it was my boss, but it was just me angry at
right.
myself and the world. Like that was just one person that
Hmm.
took the blame for my anger.
Hmm.
And I went to an anger management course to let out my anger. And it was in
Hmm.
that course that I learned boundaries. I learned how to use my anger to place boundaries and how to face my trauma. I thought I had a great childhood. I thought I was like, nah, I don't have a trauma. Me? No, I'm fine. It's that thing I said earlier, like you can only see your shadow if you're in the light. If you're in the darkness, you don't
Mm,
see any shadow. I was
mm,
totally in the darkness. I couldn't even see any shadow. Um, so then in this anger management course, it was like really a blessing for me to be able to they really made me focus on the feeling because I was suppressing for so long as being a girl, like as a little girl, you were told like you need to be nice, you need to be this, you cannot
mm,
show your anger,
mm,
push it aside.
mm.
And I had so much
Yeah.
anger suppressed. I didn't even
Mm,
imagine I had capacity for having so much anger. And
mm,
when I started letting it out, oof, it was difficult. I was bursting on everyone and everything, and my boyfriend, oh poor boyfriend, oh my god, I was screaming, and I even to the point that I questioned, like, who am I? I don't know why I'm not this
mm,
person, but I am this person. I just suppressed it for
mhm,
so long. It
mhm.
was the shadow side of me that I was pushing away,
Yeah.
but
A
it was
part of you.
only a part of me. Exactly, I
Mhm,
was compartmentalizing it to a point that
mhm,
I would never reach it, and that was making me
mhm,
sick. That was even causing me autoimmune diseases. I got to a point that I was having rosacea. I was losing so much weight. My bowel system was really, yeah, complicated because of all this anger and fear. It was a mix of anger and fear. And then I realized that they are connected. They become like
yeah.
big, they
Mhm,
become one big feeling that is difficult to
mhm,
dissociate. They just collide. And yeah, going back to my childhood, I have amazing family, but still with their own traumas. My parents are amazing. They're
mhm,
still together for 35 years. God bless them. But as you know, we're kids and we see things happening around us and we make connections in
mhm,
our brain. And as every couple fight, I had a few fights at home that I saw my dad fighting with my mom, and I made connections in my brain that, yeah, they don't love me. Because if they loved me, and that's so
mm,
egocentric of a kid, because we as a kids, we do that. It's our ego
mhm,
to protect us.
mm,
If they
mhm,
loved me enough, they wouldn't fight. Utopic
mm,
that is,
mhm,
like in
mhm,
human
mhm,
interactions. But now I look at compassion to myself and be able to, okay, I was just a kid and I couldn't have done better, but when I saw them fighting, I thought it was about me. It was never about me. It was about them trying to fix
mhm.
their own stuff.
Right.
And that's
Yeah.
also, I'm sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
sorry. I just want to say real quick. That's one thing I learned in counseling and grad school for psychology about psychological stages of development is that when we're young, we don't have that ego development. We think that everything is about us, and so if parents are fighting, if they're angry, that's our fault, and so we take that personally,
Hmm.
and that's really big and hard for us. So I think realizing that helps give ourselves compassion,
So much.
and realize why it was so hard for us, and also compassion that like that's just a natural stage of development and we're not developed enough to understand and separate these things.
Exactly, Kendall. And it's funny the belief that we form as a kid at 5 or 7. I don't remember. I think I was 5 or between 5 and 7. And there was one memory that is very clear between those ages. But it wasn't anything big, it was just a small thing. And the connection of the belief that I made, it was like, I'm not worthy and I'm broken. And I'm always going to be
Mm,
that.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
at
The
32 years
shame.
old now, I had to look at this unconscious belief that has been shaping my whole life because of
Mm-hmm.
that one little connection. But once you make that, the shift, it's so fast. It's a one reframe.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, it takes time
Mm-hmm.
for you to process, but once you rationalize it, it becomes so obvious. And then you
Mm,
test it a few times in life, and then you get better and better. But it's it's really interesting. Also, that brings me awareness if I want to be a parent one day, the
mm-hmm.
responsibility. And you're still gonna make mistakes, and you might traumatize a kid
Right.
anyway. But having this
Yep.
awareness, I think our
Mm-hmm.
parents maybe didn't have it, but also not their fault at any. It was never their
Mm-hmm.
fault. It's always about how
Mm,
how we process trauma. And I also had another experience when I was 19, and I was just thinking about that today. Actually, I buried some experiences so far down in my brain, it was that was a I think it was even worse than the case in my childhood. I had well, I was 19 and I had my first job, and I had a pretty chill life. My dad, like, I'm the only child, I'm the only girl in the family. My dad would drive me by car everywhere. But when I started working, I had to take the bus. So one morning, it was 8 a.m., I went to the bus stop. And yeah, in Brazil, sometimes you live close to favelas. I don't know if you guys heard about it, but it's like places where people are taking sometimes drugs. And
Mm.
I happened to live close to a crack point where people would consume those type of substances. And I was in the bus stop, but like never ever happened to me to that point. I was
Mm.
sitting on the bus stop with there was a woman. I have this memory very clear. I think when trauma happens, you have this very clear memory,
Mm-hmm.
like a
Mm-hmm.
picture. And there was
Mm-hmm.
this woman and this kid and another man, I think, there. And I saw another man cross in the street, and he was clearly under the substances of something. I don't know exactly what. Could be crack. Doesn't matter. And I remember feeling the fear, but I cannot react because I don't know how could I react. I'm just a little girl, you know. And this man is coming towards me and screaming, completely already like super nervous, and I was already like frozen. And he came. There were more people, but he came to me, and he slapped me, screamed, and he spit on me.
Wow.
That was a memory that I didn't even remember, like back on the days.
Mm.
I even then the bus came, and I was completely paralyzed and frozen. I had no reaction. No one did anything because I think everyone was completely frozen and no reaction. Everything happened too fast. I just remember entering the bus and sit like feeling shame and feeling disgust and feeling all those things. I can talk about it because
Mm.
it doesn't bother me anymore, but I realize now
Mm-hmm.
how I put that memory far away of my sight. And I still went
Mm-hmm.
to work crying in bits, like being this little scared young woman. And I remember my boss at the time calling my dad to pick me up. I felt like I was in school, you know. But that thing really hurt. It hurt the soul. It hurt, like, it creates a belief around men. It creates a belief around people. People have bad intentions, and it
Mm-hmm.
develops, you know, it develops like that.
Mm-hmm.
And now I can see myself, okay, that happened to me, but I'm not a victim. That person is also a victim of his own
Mm-hmm.
shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at that from the perspective that I have no aggressor, I forgive and God forgives. And if I have light, I have God is within me, and I can forgive myself. I can let go of the anger and pain and shame, and just forgive everything. And that reframing,
Mm-hmm.
it's
Mm-hmm.
like a breath of fresh air. You know, it's like, wow, it takes so
Release.
much from your
Mm-hmm.
back, and it's release. And it's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, just trusting that life
Yeah.
has its purpose. You know, that had to happen to me for some reason.
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm here forgiving men, and I know there are amazing people. Everyone is amazing. They're just going through their own stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
we can count on each other. But
Yeah.
yeah, that was
Yeah.
the big one also for my relationships. I had to go through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Actually, something I learned in coaching recently is the three archetypes we get stuck in
Mhm.
a lot is the victim, the savior, or the perpetrator.
Yes.
And I think that awakening helps us, like you were saying, see light in everyone. And so we can realize as we work through our own issues, everyone's been victimized, everyone's been hurt.
Hmm.
But we've also all been perpetrators. We've all hurt other people.
Of course.
And we've all tried to save other people in unhealthy ways. And so if we recognize that that's a sort of like oneness, and then also realize that, people are trying to find contentment and happiness and light, and, everybody's in uh, a certain amount of ignorance, and
Mhm.
ignorance causes, you could say, sin or unhealth. And, people may cope
Yeah.
with drugs, and then they may be hateful towards others, and so all of that understanding helps us have empathy and understanding of each other and appreciation, and then we can get out of that victim mentality and take we can forgive others, just like you did with your family and that
Hmm.
guy, and empowerment for our own lives. So yeah, I think that's great.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, I think trauma is a big thing for the awakening. I think it's really the main thing,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's I think trauma, it's such a waste of life. It's such, with my burnout being like 5 months completely like being locked down again, even if it wasn't locked down anymore, but I had to be locked down.
Mm-hmm.
And you, when you stop, you're just there. You have one thing to do, is to deal with yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes the body, the body is so smart. It has a unique mechanism to make you
Mm-hmm.
aware. If you're not gonna be
Yeah.
aware, it's gonna make you be it. It's gonna find
It'll
its
come to the
way.
surface. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now I see it as a blessing, honestly. It was a tough, tough period, but I'm in the light, and I can see it's only getting better and better every day. So I'm really thankful for myself and God for putting the work, and for everyone that supported me, and even the ones that didn't. It was also a lesson, and it's just nice. It's nice to be in
Mm-hmm.
this place.
Yeah, yeah. And also relate to your story with like not being able to express your anger when you're young and you had to be a certain way. That was also instilled in me. And so what I realized, even this past year is that I always knew that I struggled with self doubt and self esteem and shame. But then I started doing the work, and underneath that, I found all the anger, just like you.
Hmm.
And I think the first step is like, oh, we get into that victim mentality. Like, look what people have done to me. We have all this anger towards them. And so I think first of all is realizing that like you can't do like you used to do where you bypassed it and be like, oh, they're not perfect, whatever. It's like, no, I have this anger. You have to feel through that. That doesn't
Hmm.
mean that you need to explode on them, but you have to feel that in your body. And of course, if you can have other people around that you can help talk it out, that can be helpful. Or
Yeah.
like anger groups, you throw a rage party or whatever you need to
Brave
do to,
part,
to
yeah.
get that out.
I scream on my pillow.
Yeah.
Now I know. Like, if I'm
Yeah.
really angry, and also for women, if there's any women listening, like sometimes we have once a month, we have some
Mm-hmm.
anger
Mm-hmm.
problems. It's also a way of our bodies to clean itself. Oh, I get a
Mm.
pillow and I scream on it, and I'm like, oh, you know what? Now I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's
That's great.
necessary. Yeah.
Yeah, and so then realizing under the anger towards other people's anger towards myself, like why did I let myself be like rode over? Why did I suppress myself and suppress my largest and my light?
Mhm.
And then realizing, hey, you know what? I was doing the best I could to protect myself, and now I can be thankful that I'm older and I know better ways to do that. I know um, how to be myself, and I can be myself and be bigger, and find places and people where that's safe. And it's still a process for me. I'm sure
Mhm.
for you to some
Yeah.
extent of um, letting myself be who I truly am, letting my largest now, letting my voice out, and I mean that's part of this podcast itself.
Hmm.
But it's very, it's tough, but it's also very rewarding, and I wouldn't
100%.
trade it for anything.
Yes, I so relate with you. I think your work is amazing, and it has so much impact, and is helping so many people. I think I'm also like on my Instagram, I learn about journaling and how it has been
Mm,
helpful. And I'm journaling on my
mm-hmm.
Instagram. Now I post everything on my Instagram. It's, for me, it's a way of expressing myself. And of
Yeah.
course, you need to be responsible because there's people watching, and yeah, but it's also your way of putting your voice and to be seen and heard. Because I think for me, one of my problems as well with trauma is like I feel like I used to feel like people wouldn't listen to what I'm saying or not
Yep.
validating what I'm saying. But I'm also expecting this from people that sometimes they are into their own zone and they're not able to they
Mm-hmm.
don't have that space for you right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that hurts. Yes, it hurts, but it's compassion once more, you
Mm-hmm.
know? You can hear yourself, you can validate yourself.
Mm-hmm.
You can and I think that's the beauty of holding those spaces like you're holding, like just listening and questioning and validating. And we all have beautiful stories, and sharing them with the world, it's so healing for everyone. And now I'm also in this journey, like, okay, I felt like I wasn't heard and I felt like I wasn't seen. Now I'm going to give this space for myself and for people in my
Mm-hmm.
life. I'm going to do it because it's healing for me and for them.
Yeah.
Mm.
No, that's beautiful. And no, looking at your Instagram and watching you post and be honest and all that's really inspiring to me. Um, I think it's been a little tough for me because I'll post and I won't get much response or whatever, and then it kind of seems like I'm shouting out into the void, and then I can kind of trigger that like rejection wound. But like
Mhm.
you said, whether or not other people, we can do it for ourselves, and we can give ourselves that love, and it helps us remember that it's not about getting that externally, that we can do that for ourselves
Exactly.
and God, and it's always healing to ourselves, whether or not other people see it or not. But also, I want to say too that
Mhm.
you know there's that perfectionism, like, oh, I have to be put together and I have to present this image of being all put together.
Mhm.
But I always appreciate when other people are being very vulnerable and be like, you know what, this is what I'm going through, this is what I'm struggling with. Of course, you always have to have a level of boundaries and safety and not get too in depth in
Mhm.
public. But
Yeah.
I always appreciate people who are being honest and vulnerable and be like, hey, I'm not perfect. And so that is inspiring to do the same for other
Yeah.
people.
100%. I think indeed. I'm also learning with this social media thing. I think it's a powerful tool, but we also learn and grow a lot. Sometimes I overshare, and then I'm like, oh, he shouldn't have said that. Then I go there and I sit with myself, okay, but yeah, it's there, but the shame is mine and the guilt is
Mm-hmm.
mine. And I'm learning also with this process and trying not to find validation. Of course, I want likes. Everyone wants likes, but
Mm-hmm.
in the end of the day, why do I want those likes? You know, and
Right.
I also agree with divine timing, and when we bring ourselves more authentically and we're healing, things will come in the right time. And learning every day with social media, through feedback and I think the nicest part is to connect with people like we connected, and also other amazing people that I connect in social media that are in the same journey, like being vulnerable, sharing their stories and learning how to do it. We're just all learning, I guess, and yeah, growing together.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. That's great. So, with your after your awakening, in your job, did are you a coach now?
No, necessarily. No, it's more like a hobby of mine.
Mm-hmm.
I've done Theta Healing course, and I'm mostly doing it myself. I don't feel like I am ready to be a coach yet.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and I am still an accountant, so I still work. I love my job.
Gotcha. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm a very logical person. I love to solve problems. In accounting, you have a lot of problems to solve. So I'll never lose sight of it. But for now, I'm doing like my posts, and I'm helping people in a different way, mostly like
Mm-hmm.
interviewing people and sharing their stories. But who knows, one day, maybe I'll be a
Mm-hmm.
coach as well.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I was just confused.
No, no
Yeah, I
problem.
think that's great. I think that sometime even though I am a coach, I think
Mhm,
that sometimes people when they have experiences like this, um, think that they need to be all in on like just spiritual,
mhm,
and they kind of like leave corporate or the job or whatever. And
mhm,
certainly I think you know just like myself, I think that was my path, and that was where I
mhm,
was supposed to be. But I don't think that's the path for everybody, and we can everything can be spiritual if we make it, and we can
Yeah,
find ways to be loving and helpful in whatever ways. And we need people in all aspects of life. Like I have a friend who is a spiritual coach who's becoming a lawyer, and I think that's amazing.
it's brilliant. We also
Yeah,
need spiritual people in the big corporations. We
yeah,
definitely need leaders.
hmm
We need people that are self-aware and that can lead big companies to good decisions that comes from the heart as well, considering
hmm
and having empathy. And also in politics, like I wouldn't dare to get into politics.
yes,
I
right.
think it's a difficult one, but we also need
Yeah.
people like,
hmm
light workers that want to do good for the world. I think we're gonna get there one day. It's don't feel like it's safe yet, but we're going there.
hmm Yeah, yeah, 100%. That's great. Sorry.
No worries.
Um, yeah, so this has been really great. Thank you for sharing your story, your journey, and being authentic and vulnerable. And
Of course. My
yeah, I just love
pleasure.
your energy. Yeah.
My
Is
pleasure.
anything, thank you. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or wrap up with?
No, I just wanted to thank you for this opportunity. I think keep it up. This work is absolutely beautiful, and I'm really glad to be here. And yeah, all my love to all the people listening as well. And yeah, if you're going through something similar or a rough time, hang in there. It's gonna get better, and we're in this together. So my heart goes to everyone listening.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, same for me. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I'm
Thank
sure
you.
the listeners will um, get a lot of value from this.
Great. Thank you so much. Have a good one.
Awesome.